How do you get that?
All right, we're just gonna go ahead. Okay, so these are your instructions for today. You know, if Leif Erikson showed up in Reykjavik today, he could read these signs and understand them.
He could read?
If he can read, yes, he probably could. The language hasn't changed much from the Viking languages. Now, you might have trouble with things like cheeseburger and airport. But. Okay, so this is Iceland, and they pronounce it Island. It doesn't mean island, it means the name of the country, Island. Okay. Not too big, a few hundred miles across, and almost 10% of it is glacier. You can see from the white parts. So let's compare that to Texas. Okay, a little smaller than Texas. Now, this is a site you probably didn't want to see if you were living in the British Isles in the 800s. The Vikings did a lot of raiding. They also did colonizing. They did cooperative trading with some places. It just depended which tribe went out and what they wanted to do. They went all over the European continent, even into a little bit into Africa, and got around quite a bit. See, Normandy is here. These were the Northmen that made an agreement with France to be a buffer zone. That's where the word Normandy came from, the Northmen. Those were Vikings. And a lot of raiding and colonizing in the British Isles. Here are the Faroe Islands, Iceland, of course, Greenland from about 1000 to 1400, they were there. And of course, they got to what they called Vinland, which we think was was Newfoundland. Now, a couple of Viking ships have been found. This is not a reconstruction. This is an actual ship that was found buried in mud about 100 years ago. One in Norway and there's one in Denmark. And it was just cleaned up and put on display in Oslo. So you can see that if you're in Oslo. Here it is, another picture of it. And you'll notice this little feature here. That's how they steer the boat. That's their rudder on the right side. And the Viking words were for rudder was steery, and side of the ship was the board. So you put it together and you get steeryboard. And what's our modern word for the right side? Starboard. Nothing to do with stars. Starboard is the steeryboard side of the ship. You wouldn't want to park next to the dock on that side, you'd crush your rudder. So when you come into port, you park on the left side. That's the port side. So that's pretty cool. Great ship. That's the front of the ship there. Just a quick history of Iceland. Irish priests went there probably from the 600s onward to get isolation, and they sure got isolation there. Nobody else was there. But the Vikings came in 874. Ingolfur Arnason came there and brought his tribe. He was probably getting away from Norway or Sweden because he probably murdered someone. That's what you did if you were a Viking. You murdered someone and then you went farther west. And settlers kept arriving, and now a lot of tribes, their chieftains were bringing their Viking tribes to Iceland. So by 930, you had enough tribes that there were little squabbles going on as to where the borders were. When they got to Iceland, they saw places like this. It's a dramatically scenic area. And want to be sure we are recording, right, Edward? We got that started, right? Okay. Geysers and a lot of volcanic activity that is still going on in Iceland every day.
Can I interrupt for a
Yeah.
second? So they don't have the same safety concerns. You can get way too close to one of those geysers if you want to. There's just maybe a little,
Wire that anybody could step over, a kid could step over it.
because they're so prevalent everywhere. It's not a big deal. It's not like you have to drive all the way to the west
of
the country and see all the
the old
way. They're everywhere.
Now, Grimur Geitscore, one of the chieftains, decided in 930 that they ought to do something about the squabbles amongst the tribes and the chieftains in Iceland. So he brought them all together, and it became the first representative government in any form in Europe. They met at the Thingvellir field. Now that symbol is pronounced like a TH, Thingvellir, which means a gathering field or assembly field. Not that close to Reykjavik, about 50 miles outside of Reykjavik. Reykjavik was just a backwater village at the time at best. So they met at Thingvellir. And you can see the spot where they met. It's well known. Geitscore used this big wall, this natural wall here behind him to have his sound amplified. So we know exactly where they met, and you can visit this national park, Thingvellir National Park. Now, Eric the Red, which we've all heard of him, made his way from Iceland to Greenland in the year 980. Probably murdered somebody, I bet. Had to go west. And the Vikings had settlements for several hundred years around Greenland in this area. And then his son, named Ericsson, which is how they name people in Iceland still today, finally made it all the way to North America in the year 1000. So Leif Erikson and Eric the Red were probably not the greatest of the Viking explorers. Probably the greatest was this person, Gudrid Thornbjarnardóttir. And Brenda knows a lot about Gudrid.
Well, obviously, that's a woman's name. It's still her father's name, but with the daughter on the end. She was quite a traveler. She had several husbands, and she went with or without them, depending on her mood. She probably crossed the ocean 7 times that we know of, including at the end of her life.
She actually made it to Rome.
Because about that time, Christianity had hit the island. She became a Christian. She was interested, and so she actually went to Rome on a pilgrimage. She was an amazing traveler. But her other claim to fame, of course, is that she was the mother of the first child of European descent that was born in the New World, in the Western Hemisphere, because the child was born in Newfoundland when she was there. She was a peacemaker. She got along with tribes that lived there. They have documents. Documents is probably the wrong word, but certainly written legends or tales of her and getting along with the Native Americans. It was the men who couldn't get along, and eventually they were forced to leave because of squabbles between the men, but the women got along just fine.
How can that be?
Look, I mean, friendship, of course. Okay. That's Gudrid.
So here's it was a little more. It's a close-up of the statue showing her,
Oh, that's right.
illustrating her son that she gave birth to in Vinland, in Labrador. And then houses and buildings of the kind that she might have lived in back in Iceland and Greenland. So they got in trouble with the Native Americans because the men just couldn't stop fighting. And so this is what Brenda was talking to you about. Back in Iceland, she decided to go to Rome, as Brenda said, and that pilgrimage. Here is the site. For a long time, it was thought that that these mounds were Indian mounds. That's the actual original site as it was found and being studied in 1960. There was a big study of it, and some Norwegian scientists said this is just like the Vikings built all of their foundations for their buildings, and they declared this a Viking foundation, not an Indian mound. It's been reconstructed in another part near the mounds. They've reconstructed what those buildings would have been, and you can visit that. That's a park in Labrador, Lansing Meadow. So actually, women were not only involved in exploration, but in sometimes it is thought they were part of the defense, fighting to defend villages, and also were in charge of cloth making, which of course was critically important, and that was mostly done from the wool. A little more on the wool.
I'm not sure which slides you have.
Yeah, quite a bit on this.
Oh, okay. Again, this is around 1,000, 1,200. The looms were enormous, because if you looked at that Viking sail that in one of the ships earlier, in one of the slides earlier, it would take, I think they said, it would take 2 women 4 to 5 years to make a sail that was big enough to put on one of their ships. But it was, the cloth itself was so valued in the area that it was actually the currency. They had so much silver to so much pieces of cloth, and you could use them interchangeably. You didn't have to have the silver. You could use the cloth as money because it was that well respected of an art at that time. And yes, that was all for the women.
Okay, now is anyone here a geologist? No, that's okay. You don't have to. Well, you will be in a minute or two. As you might know, Iceland is located right on the Atlantic Rift, mid-Atlantic Rift. And as a result, you would expect a lot of geological activity, and you would get it. Here's a close-up of Iceland. It's continuing to be born all the time. The magma is coming up. The island splits apart, in fact, several centimeters a year. So you saw the Thingvellir. You can walk down, I'll show you, between the American plate and the European plate. Every so often they get voids underneath the sidewalk. They have to fill them in because the ground is splitting apart. These eruptions have been going on for millions of years, of course. So here's where we walked in between the 2 plates. And you can do that. This is all at Thingvellir National Park. So well worth the visit. Okay, and then this is an active volcano, right?
Yes.
They were, there's a display at the Lava Center, and we'll show you a map of where things are. The so-called Lava Center that shows you the active seismic activity under Iceland at that moment. And there's always stuff going on. The magma is always there, causing some excitement. For example, in 1963, a new island was created off the southern coast called SURTSEY. It's now about a mile square, that island. And that was just new land that was created volcanically. Now here's another volcano. This occurred in 1973 on another island just south of the mainland. And you know, I wonder what these 2 guys are talking about. Hey, George, did you see the volcano? Amazingly, no one was killed by the volcano. Everybody had to get out, of course. And eventually they were able to come back and rebuild. They had, I don't know how they did it because there were several feet of ash, of course, underneath.
Do you have a slide of that too?
I don't think I showed, I don't have a slide. Well, maybe I do, yeah. All right, so there's the volcano continuing. Yeah, you're right. So there it is, buried under the ash. HEIMAEY Island, so somehow they came back and rebuilt it. And this is the other, no, this is not shown at the Lava Center as much as it is at the Volcano House, which is in Reykjavik. I'll show you where those two museums are. Yeah, it was pretty substantial. And now this is everybody's favorite volcano, right? Can everybody say that? Brenda can say it. Go ahead.
Okay.
The name of this volcano is Eyjafjallajökull. Are you going to show that?
Yeah, that's easy for you.
You to
We have a
say.
video on it. This is-
Let's hope the video works. Okay,
Keep your fingers crossed.
I'm gonna try it.
Volcanic fallout,
Right.
how it's affecting businesses, and
Yeah,
how
we can
people are
get
coping.
sound. Let's see what happens.
Stay with CNN.
All right. We had it before. Let's see.
Okay, so down the bottom right, that
Yeah.
one, right there, click. Click it,
That's what it should
it's
be.
fine, and then, click the left. There you go. Okay, so before you do anything, so
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a whole YouTube.
And for on-the-ground updates around the world, on TV and online, coverage continues. CNN.
All right, well, Iceland, volcano, ash cloud, simple words, easy to pronounce in English. But what about this one? There it is. Oh, that's the name of the volcano itself. Not quite as easy. Jeannie Most looks at how journalists covering the story are coping with the Icelandic tongue twister.
While it spewed ashes, newscasters spewed a molten lava of syllables.
Eya, Flya, Yakur, Vol.
Aya Flya Yerkaval.
It's Aya Fjallajökull.
Eya, Volik.
That's it?
It's a name so unpronounceable, we can't even tell when someone says it right.
And I'm not going to get this name right, but it's E.F. Yar Cool.
Most of us are so terrified if it's 16 letters, we avoid any mention of the name.
In the volcano.
That volcano. From that volcano whose name nobody can pronounce.
Saturday Night Live caught on to the way the press is suffering from volcanic naming avoidance syndrome.
By huge clouds of ash shot into the air by Iceland's, I hope I'm saying this right, volcano.
The real networks are trotting out Icelandic.
So he got it right. So he got it right. All right, well. Sorry about that. Why is that getting feedback? There's a picture of Eyjafjallajökull from space. And remember, it interrupted aircraft travel. You can't fly through that. You're going to get glass particles in your engine and go down, and that's not good. And the Icelanders would have to rescue you. Well, when we took an overnight flight, you can fly from Boston or New York on Air Iceland. American also might fly there, but we took Air Iceland and arrived at 6 a.m. local time, got off the airplane, got on a bus with our luggage, went to the Blue Lagoon where they checked our luggage for us while we were there, and we went into the Blue Lagoon. And you may have heard occasionally someone will say on the internet, oh, it's overrated, it's overpriced, don't do it. And they're wrong, because we found it really exciting and well worth going. And it really is one of a kind in the world. And while there are other warm baths, natural springs you can visit in Iceland, and probably should, this is just spectacular. So you don't want to miss that. Incidentally, the handout that we'll provide as a PDF to Mary, you'll be able to get from her, has links to all these, most of these places that we're talking about. Here we are. Did we have a good time?
I think so.
So you go straight there from the airport if you want. In the past 30 years or so, it's only been closed 3 days. That includes Icelandic winters. It's open every day. They've had to close 3 times. They probably had to close a lot more, but they didn't. This is fun. This is near the geyser you saw a picture of earlier. There are a lot of little hot bubbling mini lagoons, I guess. This one's only about 4 feet across or something. I think I tried to record the sound. Yeah, you'll see these in New Zealand. New Zealand has boiling mud. So let's see, we can show them how to make it. Maybe we'll go on.
Yeah.
So this is just a picture of the geyser. That's their biggest geyser. What's the name of the town it's in?
Geyser.
Oh. I forgot. That's the whole point, right? Is you can remember where the word geyser comes from. It's from the town of Geyser in Iceland. And this goes off about every minute and a half or something.
You can see how close they were to it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, they put a string around so you don't boil yourself. That's about it. Well, glaciers. Vatna means lake. So Vatnajökull is the largest of the glaciers. See that. There are lakes in Iceland, small lakes. If you like fishing, you can go fishing in them. No big lakes, but there are several small ones. And this was a special place. This is Jökul's Island Lagoon. And you can see that it's at the bottom of a glacier, and bergs are breaking off of the glacier, floating in the lagoon, and they're going to float out into the, I think it's the Greenland Sea or the Iceland Sea or something. And you can see all of that. Here's Brenda introducing us to that at Jökul's Island. I'm going to try out my Icelandic. This is Brenda Martinsdottir at Jökul's Island Lagoon in Vatnajökull National Park at the base of Breidamerica Jökull Glacier. Wasn't too bad. Here. Temperatures in Reykjavik are fairly mild, actually, all things considered, although you do get snowed in for a few months, of course. It's less mild as you go into the highlands and elsewhere in Iceland, but Reykjavik itself, not real deep freeze kind of a place.
Are these daytime temperatures?
Well, it's an average. So
It says average.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says average, and I'm not sure
So
precisely what they mean.
So 3 years ago, we went last week of May, first week of June.
Yeah, something like that.
One day was very cold, but we were on the water. The rest of the time, they had record highs. One of the tour guides took a picture of us in shirt sleeves because they'd never seen anybody that didn't have to wear a coat or a jacket. And I'm afraid that's the way the world is probably going. So I would guess it's getting warmer, not colder there.
Yeah, and you can see that the Gulf Stream brushes by Reykjavik and keeps it a little bit warmer. Lots of critters. Now, that Brenda's making friends with that horse, and that's a full-grown horse. They call them ponies, Icelandic ponies, but it's a full-grown horse. Now, it has a special gait. The Icelandic pony has a gait that is completely level. So if you're riding on the pony and holding your beer, it won't spill unless you're completely drunk, and then it will. But they have an even gait. The back And when they're in that gate, the back doesn't go up and down at all.
We did not go horseback
We
riding,
didn't
to
do
be
it.
fair. But
Right, because they wouldn't give me a free beer if I did. Now, the puffins are there in season. And you can go fishing. But this guy, where was this?
The airport.
Yeah, this sheep was at the airport
They're just,
in Reykjavik, Keflavik Airport. Yeah, well, he found grass and he wanted it, so. Iceland, starting in 930 of the Common Era, has had a representative government in one form or another, the oldest in Europe. Continues today. They have a strong military. They used to be a colony of Denmark until 1944, when they declared independence, and built up a strong military. They have a coast guard. They have an air fleet, mostly helicopters. They got into some battles with the British Navy, the Royal Navy, over fishing rights a bunch of years ago. And I always tell people, don't mess with Iceland. You'll face these guys. The language, you can see most of the letters are similar to ours. This is a soft D here. And then where'd my TH go? Here it is. That's the TH sound, like Thingvellir. Mostly similar letters. And so now you should be able to read this sign. And ransacking. Listen, we're going to say something about ransacking.
ransacking is.
Room
an
searching, right?
Yes, right. It's an Icelandic word. Very few Icelandic words have come into our language. Starboard, I guess, and ransacking might be the only two that I can think of.
Now, ransacking originally meant room searching. But if you're a Viking, why would you search a room pleasantly, right? You bust open the door, you tear everything apart. But what you're doing is you're searching for stuff you want to take. Okay, so ransacking came from that. And the Vikings weren't always polite about it. It was an accident, though. If they caused any damage, it was just an accident. So this is a cute comment by Bill Bryson about Leif Erikson could read the signs, and Icelanders can read the 1,000-year-old Icelandic chronicles in their original form. Icelandic has deviated from the old Viking language. It's no longer similar to Norwegian, which of course has deviated even more because of the other European influences on Norway. So Icelandic is its own language. The Faroe Islands is a separate Viking language, which has also deviated away from the others.
Who do the Faroes belong to?
The Faroe Islands and Greenland are home rule entities. They're nations within they call the Kingdom of Denmark. Okay, it's really an empire, but they call the Kingdom of Denmark as Denmark, and then Faroe Islands are an entity, and Greenland is an entity. I know the Faroe Islands and probably Greenland have one representative in the Danish Parliament. They control their own home rule, but international relations are handled by Denmark. So if you're in the Faroe Islands, you take an army and try to invade the Faroe Islands, Denmark military would respond. Iceland, they're on their own. And so we're talking about Iceland, used to be a Danish colony, but is now independent. Now, Iceland still uses the names as they were done 1,000 years ago. And so if you look in the phone book, for example, you'll see here's Hildur. That's a woman's name. So there's all these Hildurs living in Iceland. You know, Hilmar's Valgeirsdóttir, Hildur Valsdóttir, Hildur Thorgeirsdóttir, and of course, daughter meaning obviously the daughter of, that's her father's name ahead of it. And you have to name yourself, you have to name your child in this method with very few exceptions allowed. Hilmar is a man's name. So here's Hilmar Björgvinsson, here's Hilmar Bjornsson, Hilmar Eberhardsson, and so on. Okay, so those are your names. And next to your name, you can put your, if you want, you can have them put your employment or something else. Like one guy said, I'm not the famous guy who's a golfer. There's had some famous golfer in Iceland. But you see, there's Leikner is a doctor, and this is short form for a skipper. And we see Smuter is a carpenter, and so on. And then this one here down below lists herself as husmutter, which would be like housewife. It would be our old term for that. So there's your phone book. You can fly Iceland Air from New York or Boston. Last time we checked. And get to Keflavik near Reykjavik. Reykjavik is here. And Air Iceland Connect will fly you around Iceland if you want to, you know, it's a quick hop flight around Iceland, or they can fly you to Greenland or Faroe Islands. Iceland Air, of course, is quite a large airline, can fly you to many European cities also. There is a ring road that you can see. So you can actually drive around the whole island. The roads are not great. If you're going to rent a car or use a car, you just want to be kind of careful. The roads, you know, they're not very wide. Some of them are kind of sloped in the middle a little bit. They do have some traffic problems and accidents on the roads.
So I'm not sure what it said in your thing that Mary sent out, but we did not technically take a driving vacation, but we didn't also, you can also cruise all the way around, or you can go halfway and come back. So you can get cruises separately, which we did not do. We flew into Reykjavik and we took several different professional bus tours. So they would take you like, well, to some of the different sites that we've already shown slides on. They can last from, gosh, from 6 to 13 hours long, which sounds like a lot, but it really, you can't drive fast. So if you were going to go halfway around and get to one of the lagoons that we went to, it would take that long of a day. And they stop a lot. They are perfectly nice about telling you when the next bathroom is coming, because that's important. And they stop for food. And the drivers are always very well educated. And so they'll tell you geography or history or whatever it is that you're passing. So the way we did it is when we were in Reykjavik, and we kind of alternate. We would do a bus trip and then come back, and the next day we would just take local city buses. So we had a weekly pass to just get on any place and get off. Those bus drivers are not as nice. They just, you know, kind of just point you, and if you get off at the wrong place, well, it's not that far. So we did a combination of buses, either city buses or long distance buses. But again, you can take a cruise if that's the way you want to travel. But it's way more expensive, just so I'm sure you know that. So we didn't do it.
Yep. So right. So taking buses and day trips was great, I thought.
It worked
and,
very well.
We decided not to drive ourselves because we just didn't do it. Here, the cruises that Brenda was talking about is one of the cruises. Some of the cruises go all the way around, but this one, I'm losing my battery. This particular cruise, you see, does a little bit of south, west, and north, which is where most people live. But there's some great sites, you know, elsewhere. But the eastern side is less inhabited, fewer people, but you know the road goes all the way around if you want to take it. Some of those day trips actually you can take are 2-day trips. Well, a few of them just leaving from Reykjavik. The price per day is maybe a couple $100. It's, you know, you get a lot. You get your money's worth for a couple $100. They do everything for you, and you see great stuff. We're going to show you more pictures. We're not done with our pictures yet. A little more about Iceland. Fishing is the main industry. Has been, of course, for about 1,000 years. Aluminum refining. Does anybody know why aluminum refining is such a big industry in Iceland?
Cheap power.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Cheap power. To reduce aluminum ore to aluminum metal takes a lot of energy, a lot of heat. And so much so that if you have a shipload of aluminum ore, it's cheaper to send it to Iceland, have them reduce it into aluminum metal, and ship the aluminum metal back to where you are in Europe or America or wherever. It's actually cheaper to do that because the energy to reduce aluminum ore is very great amount. And they have that magma, right? They have the magma, whatever, a couple thousand degrees or something underneath them. And they can tap into that energy. And then tourism, of course. If you want to see about the fishing, they have a great maritime museum in Reykjavik. Really well worth a visit. This is one of our fun places. The Friedheimer greenhouse. They grow tomatoes. Anywhere you are in Iceland, on any given day, you can get a fresh tomato. And I mean really fresh, typically less than 1 day old. They grow them here at Friedheimer. You can visit, you can sample tomato soup, tomato juice, tomato bread. I don't know if they have tomato ice cream. Now, you know, tomatoes have to be pollinated either by hand, which takes a long time, or better by bees. And we saw a box of bees, so we took a picture of them. They have to import their bees. Bees cannot live in Iceland. They can live in the greenhouse, have a really good time pollinating tomato plants.
Pretty sure they have to do it every week, I think is what they said.
Right.
New box of bees every week.
Yeah, so that's a great place to visit, Friedheimer. If you're into folk dancing,
We couldn't find it.
we tried, yeah, we looked at folk or similar dances.
We tried.
There it is, they have folk dancing. Iceland has won Nobel Prize. It's this author, Halldór Laxness. He published his book in 1946, Independent People. And it takes place, the book takes place in around 1900, when Icelandic people were thinking about independence. And so it's about the independence of the people, but it's also about the independence of the individual farmer. Life on Iceland was very harsh because it's cold most of the time. And you're trying to raise a flock or raise a tiny bit of food, it's very difficult. And so he wrote this story, and it harkens back even to the time of witches and trolls, which the people still believed in to some extent. And it talks about, well, if you enter this area, you want to leave an offering at this place where the witch will come and make sure that you've left her some kind of offering. And yet they're trying to become a modern people also. So this won him the Nobel Prize in 1955. Now, in Iceland, they talk about the gray people. To you and me, you might say, well, these, 30-foot tall structures, they're just rocks, erosion features or something. But the Icelandic people know differently. These are the gray people. And if you're out at night, you have to be careful because they may come to life, these gray people, and they roam the wilderness. So beware if you're roaming at night. Icelandic sports, they're big on sports and fitness. Should we start with your favorite one, which is Annie's tourist doctrine?
My favorite one.
Which one is it?
Well, sure.
Let's try that.
Yes.
All right, so here's a quick quiz. Which one of the following foods is absolutely killing your testosterone levels? Eggs, flaxseed, milk, bananas.
Something you might want to do when you're in Iceland.
Standing on the edge of a cliff, realize there must be more to life than this. Reaching for the stars, traveling so far, like a dragonfly. Just grab my hand from him, send me tonight. I run away. I run away. I run away.
I'm tired already. Soccer is pretty big. Sorry about the sound. I don't know what to do. We don't make it any quieter, we won't hear it. Soccer is really big. They defeated England 2 or 3 years ago in the European Championships. Called it Brexit 2.
Island stößt zum ersten Mal in seiner Verbandsgeschichte zu einem EM-Spiel an.
Gunnarsson, the captain, flinging it long. The flick on arrive. Will the shot? Yes, it will! Iceland have grabbed the lead! Dalvik, Rirot!
Icelandic dugout. Okay, this is the with that sound.
These will be some slides from Reykjavik of different places that we walked or took the bus to.
All the way down to the taskbar.
Taskbar.
Click that and get to the homepage.
Not all the way.
No, go ahead, because you don't want audio coming out of that. So just turn that one off.
No, that's the overhead.
Yeah, and we don't need it, right?
It might need some.
Oh, so now we lost the slides to the slideshow again.
Oh,
did we all go through the whole thing?
Yeah, you got to see the whole thing. Yeah.
That's all
I think
right.
I could have done that before.
Reviewing. We could review that.
Reviewing.
Over there.
All right, good job.
This is fascinating.
All right, that's the Harpa Auditorium in Reykjavik. Yeah, here's Brenda inside the building.
It's worth seeing even if you don't see a show there, but we did actually see a show there.
Yeah, I think we'll
talk about that later.
I think we'll have a slide on the show that we saw there. We'll come back to that if we don't. This is the Hallgrímskirkja, which is a famous church. And there's a statue of Leif Erikson out front. And that statue was given by the United States in 1930, celebrating a millennium of representative government in Iceland, given by the US. The museums, just quickly mentioning them in Reykjavik, Maritime Museum, about the fishing industry and so on. The settlement exhibition, it's actually built around a relic that they found. This is a hearth that they found excavated where there was a Viking building, a Viking house, and they built a museum around it about the early settlement. And then this is the National Museum of Iceland, which is very big, has a huge display about everything Icelandic and all their history and all their culture. So these are museums, be sure to see in Reykjavik. This is another Reykjavik museum, and this is where they show movies of that volcano that I showed you before in HEIMAEY Island. That's where I got the pictures of taking a picture of their movie of it. The Lava Center is another one that we mentioned, and they're 60 miles away. So when you're Googling volcano museums in Iceland, it was very confusing for us. We finally figured out there are two museums 60 miles apart, both worth seeing. A museum that is not well known within Iceland, which is very sad because we think it's one of the great ones, is the Einar Jónsson Sculpture Museum. He was the national sculptor of Iceland, and it's very close to the church. In fact, it's across the street from the church. But even a lot of the art guides don't even know about it. It's a shame because his art is brilliant. This is a particularly interesting statue called the Outlaws. And you can see somewhat, it's about 8 feet tall. It's a little larger than life. You see the man there is holding the baby. He's coming down the hill, which is significant. He has his dog with him. But what's he carrying on his back?
Another baby?
It's his wife who has died. She's naked, so you know she's died. He's an outlaw. One of the penalties for being an outlaw, commit a crime, is they would send you to the Highlands. Good luck trying to survive, you and your family. Okay, that was exile. And, you know, a lot of them just died. but some survived for at least a while. They were not allowed to come back into an inhabited place forever. That was exile. His wife has died. He's coming down the hill because he wants to bury her body in sacred ground at one of the churches, which is forbidden. So he's coming down at night, sneaking down. Even the dog has the expression, right, of sneaking down. It's an Icelandic dog that was common there. Even the dog senses it. And he's carrying his child and the body of his wife, and he will try to bury her in sacred ground. This won the first prize in the Copenhagen sculpture contest around 1900 and 1901. And he became, Jonsson became the national sculptor of Iceland. Here's the courtyard of the museum, and you can see his style was neoclassical with Icelandic myth shown in. This is protection. We love that museum. There's a couple more. This is great. You like Grimoires?
That head is about this big.
Huge. About the size of the
On the
screen.
wall. And you
That's
can
about
see-
real size of it, or even bigger.
You
right?
can see the not letting the person sleep, you know, holding his eyes. Those are little gremlins holding his eyes open so he can't sleep.
And they're whispering in his ear all the time. Very great sculpture. So these are typical sites. If you go online, you'll see these bus tours. If you're not going to drive yourself, you let them do the driving. And that's how we did it, but it depends on your style, you know, what you like to do. But these were great, you know. We took like 3 of them in 5 days. Spent most of our time, and they would stop so often, as Brenda said, and you see the sights, you know. You see all the good sights.
Which currency are those prices?
Oh, yeah, right. These are priced in this Icelandic crowns. It's about 125 crowns to $1. So Brenda is quite wealthy. She's the wealthy side, and people
I forgot
pass,
about that.
she'll pass around somewhere money, and I hope it comes back. But,
So like the thing that says 18,900.
yeah, so if you divide it by 100, it'd be $180. So it's say $150 when we did it.
133.
Well, thank you. That's even better. Yeah, I bet the prices are higher now, right? Those were
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah,
But,
that's
you know, it
true.
gives you an idea, you
Less than
know,
a penny to a crown.
how many?
Less than a penny to a crown.
Right, yeah, right, less than a penny for each crown. So the prices aren't that big deal, $150 to $250.
So did you book all these tours before you left?
Yes, we
Or
did.
did you? Okay.
We booked them all before we left.
Good question, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we booked everything we possibly could ahead of time because we didn't want to take all this effort to go to Iceland and then get, you know, prevented from going on a tour because it was full.
Including the Blue Lagoon.
Including
the
The Blue Lagoon.
Blue Lagoon. We definitely booked that also before we came.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question, yeah.
Good idea.
Right, if you're only going to be there for a couple of weeks, you definitely want to book in advance. If you're going to be there for a few months, you know, no big deal. But if you're going to be there for a couple of weeks or less, you definitely want to book everything you possibly can in advance. Your hotel can advise you if you're going to rent a car, for example, or, you know, which tour stops at their hotel. Your hotel guest, your hotel front desk, you can call them long in advance, you know, from here. Call Iceland and talk to your hotel desk if you have any questions about that. It's worth the international call, you know, if it costs you a couple of bucks to talk to someone at a hotel or the tour guide or something, you know, talk to them and find out what's going to work for you.
So another thing that we didn't mention, because we're not talking about the Faroes specifically, the plane that easily goes from Reykjavik to the Faroe Islands only flies 2 days a week. So the way we planned our tour is we had some days on Iceland, and then in the middle to the Faroes and back, and then the rest of the trip in Iceland. So that, again, a lot of logistics, but worth it to have it all done in advance. I'm sure if you wanted to, you could just pop on a plane to the Faroe Islands, but then who knows where you can stay.
Twice a week.
Yeah. So again, lots of logistics in advance made it a very smooth vacation. I think we only got on the wrong city bus once.
Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty good.
Yeah, the Faroe Islands are about 300 miles to the east of Iceland. They're a Danish protectorate. They're self-governing entity within the Kingdom of Denmark. And I'll show you, at the very end, we'll show you one picture from Faroe Islands, just to say, well, maybe you should go there too.
A teaser, right?
It's a teaser. If you're going to be in Iceland more than a couple weeks, you might consider the idea of a side trip. And we took that, and it's on our itinerary that you'll see in the PDF file that Mary will have for you during the next week as our detailed itinerary.
Oh, money.
Icelandic money. Again, remember, Island is the name of the country. Doesn't mean we're Ireland. It's Iceland. And if you want one of those hats, by the way, some of you ladies or guys might want that hat. We can see about it. Now, we went to this show at the Harpa. You don't want to miss this. This is just a ride. It's almost every day. It's so popular. It runs almost every day. It's a live comedian for 1 hour. And at the end of the hour, you're declared an honorary Icelandic. How to be Icelandic.
They tell you how to behave in the spas and how to pronounce Ayafatioko and I guess.
Yeah, everything, right. Everything you need to know to be Icelandic. One of them was how to give directions in Icelandic. Okay, and we saw this. I said to the bus driver when I was getting off the bus in Reykjavik, I said, where do we pick up the bus to come back? He spoke English, okay. Most people do there. And he says, over there. I said, well, you mean that corner or that corner? He said, yeah, over there. So sure enough, the comedian said, that's how we give directions in Iceland. Everything's over there. That's all it is. So it's how to be Icelandic. You can take a ferry to Videy Island in Reykjavik Harbor, and there you will find Yoko Ono's Imagine Peace Memorial to John. That says peace in many languages there. It's a very quiet island. There's a little tiny cafe, and then just a walkway. You can just walk around. And here are some more pictures as we're getting close at the end here, but wanted to just throw in some additional pictures of us at Skogafoss. And Saxhol is an extinct volcano. You can walk up those stairs. Notice how the stairs are built right into the mountain, non-obtrusively. It won an award for ecological development. And you can just look down into the crater, which is totally extinct and things are growing in it and so on. And there's Kuryafell Mountain, if you're a fan of some of those, what is it, Game of Thrones or something?
Yeah.
You can drive by Kuryafell Mountain in southern Iceland. And this was one of our favorite spots in mid-park part of Reykjavik, near our hotel and near the main bus stop. And it's a food court. And we definitely had a favorite food there, didn't we? Very nutritional. It is. Warm cinnamon muffins and buns. And we would go there and, you know, sometimes we'd have like a hamburger for dessert, but this was our main sustenance while we were staying close to, we just stayed in a hotel, the Mid-Park Hotel, across the street from this place. And some more pictures, just great stuff everywhere we went, lots of great scenery. And so it's time for Spurningar og Sur. Did everybody prepare for that? And we brought along a friend, and as you can see, he's very friendly. He'll be more than happy to answer your questions. If we can't answer your questions, we will turn you over to Thor. He will take care of the matter. After this, we're going to give you a teaser for the Faroe Islands. One picture. So, any additional questions? We will try to answer them. Imagine yourself being in Iceland for a couple weeks.
Tell me about your housing.
The housing in Iceland, okay? Yes.
Please repeat so the people.
Right. The question is the housing. What's it like to live in Iceland? Of course, we stayed in a hotel. We didn't go to one of the houses. They're very nice residential areas that we could see, but we didn't spend a lot of time with it. So that's something, the housing, I think you'll have to find out from, you know, the hosts that you'll talk to. But, you know, people have houses there and things, it's a very modern country. even though they still have their myths and their ancient history, and they feel like Vikings, but it's a very modern country. Most people also speak English. But you just need to find that out from those people.
So there aren't any trees. That's one thing, that's no
Right.
trees. The other thing, which is actually from the Faroes, but I'll tell you anyway, because it kind of, the Faroes is a much smaller place, and I became friendly with somebody in a bookstore, and she was about to, well, she had just gotten married, and she said, it's such a small community that everybody comes to everybody else's wedding, right? Everybody comes. And she didn't want a big wedding, and the only way she could get out of it is that she had to elope. So she hadn't told her parents yet. She told me before she told her parents that they were planning on eloping to not have a big wedding. So it's not technically about housing, but it's about the culture. And I know you all are
That's
also
interesting.
interested in the different cultures as well.
And general, what would you say if my son and daughter-in-law went there? They said it seemed extremely expensive to them.
Okay, a good question is, how expensive is it in Iceland? Again, we didn't stay in a house, we stayed in a hotel, which was fairly expensive, but I would probably expect to pay as much in a Boston hotel or something. I mean, it wasn't crazy expensive. As far as the food goes, a lot of people go out to restaurants for food. We went occasionally to a restaurant, but more likely we went to a grocery store or a little hole-in-the-wall restaurant, and the cooking everywhere was quite good.
The ethnic restaurants were much cheaper. We actually had a lot of Vietnamese food there, believe it or not.
Yeah,
And
sure.
some other Asian stuff too, I think.
Yeah, so if
Yeah, you don't have to spend a lot.
right, if you go to a fancy restaurant, which we did maybe once, it was expensive. It probably wasn't as good as some of the other food we had. It was okay. Yes, that can be very expensive. But if you look for just, little tiny hole in the wall restaurants, or you go to grocery stores that will prepare food for you, it doesn't have to be expensive at all. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Their class structure, is it sort of like other countries like Denmark, Norway and all that, where they don't really have a lot of poverty?
The class structure is the question, and a question of poverty. Everybody gets health care paid through the taxes, so you have your health care and most of your education. And I don't know if, certainly there's a wide range of economics. My impression is there's not a lot of abject poverty. They import workers from Europe, which our guide said, we really rely on the working people that we import from, have them come here as guests to work here. They make an okay living, I suppose. I didn't really research though the full range of economics.
Did you see any homeless people?
Didn't see anybody, did we? No.
No.
I suspect.
I mean, nobody's standing on the corner asking for money or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, everywhere we went, although, we were on tour, but we walked around Reykjavik, we took buses. Everything we saw was pleasant, and people were not apparently suffering in any way. But you'd have to research more than what we saw, but it seemed very pleasant everywhere in that regard.
Did they get much COVID in Iceland?
The COVID in Iceland, we went there before COVID, in early 2019. Just reading about it, yeah, I mean, they had it.
Did they have much crime?
The crime, Iceland has a reputation in terms of crime, is a question, of almost being crime-free. First of all, they're an island, so it's a little hard to get away. Recently, there's been a little bit of drug crime that I just read about it in the last couple of months. They've reported some crime, but generally still, it's going to be very, very safe.
And presumably they don't have any weapons.
I don't think I've heard of any shooting at all, no. It's going to be very safe in Iceland, at least for a long time to come. Yeah.
Unless you run into that guy.
Well, I'd be careful with Thor. Yeah.
Did you hear anything about how they lost a lot of money?
Yeah.
The government back in 2007, 2008, when they were.
Yes, I
all those things.
know about that. It was a bank fraud.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't apply to anything that we were doing this time.
I thought it did.
Well, it was,
I know
this was,
there was one town in Norway that went totally broke, and I thought Reykjavik had some of that.
yeah, so the question is about the bank crash of 2008. It was very severe. Apparently, a small number of people figured out a scheme to steal basically all the money in Icelandic banks, and it never got recovered. And Icelandic economy took a big hit. In 2010, they rewrote their constitution, and I presume they put in more protections. So there's a huge crash of 2008, and they really haven't recovered from it fully economically since then.
This is more of a statement that they only have a population of a little over 350,000 people. And I don't know that I've ever been to a country that I admired more, that was they really have a pretty harsh environment from seeing its pictures. And for 350,000 people to have accomplished what they've accomplished in these modern cities, and the whole place is very modern, well-run. And I thought they were the most beautiful people as a group that I've ever seen. I just thought it was a fabulous place to visit.
Yep, just to repeat, the people are very pleasant. Most of them speak English quite well. The people are nice, the place is nice.
I know they don't have any trees. Do they have any flowers?
Do they have flowers? Did we see flowers?
Flowers, I think so.
Probably.
Definitely, well, obvious, okay. The sheep are in Faroes, but there's sheep in Iceland.
Well, there's sheep in Iceland.
So I don't remember. I think so.
I saw a lot of flowers.
Did you see? Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, are there a lot of flowers? And the answer is yes, but no trees.
Not even hanging baskets like they have in a lot of cities.
Well,
I
there's
don't
some flowers. We didn't see a lot, but maybe we just weren't watching. I think we saw some on the West Coast. Yeah, so the answer is there are a lot of flowers. Thank you.
There are.
In the right season. Thank you for helping us out. Okay, so any other? And so just a little teaser on our side trip. You can see where the Faroes are, a few hundred miles to the east of Iceland. And here's your teaser. This is one of the prettier villages we saw in the north of the Faroe Islands. Oyndarfjordur. It's on a fjord, and you'll typically see those mountains very level in the Faroes. They're not active volcanically anymore for 50 million years. Lots of little villages, 18 islands, 16 of which are inhabited. Population of about 55,000, about half of whom live in the capital, Tórshavn. So we took a side trip. You'll see it on our itinerary that Mary will have the PDF of next week for you, and a great side trip.
So now they look as if there are a couple of trees in that picture, except they don't have any leaves on them. You were there in May, right?
We were there in May, so yeah, that's true. You know, Faroes has a reputation for not having trees.
I think they're big bushes.
But if you look at that's, you know, they're
trees.
This should be investigated. Yes.
Maybe Faroes.
They're not single trunk, but they look a little more like, but they're multi-trunk. So I'm not a botanist, but anyway.
Multi-trunk trees, they just don't have any leaves. I just wonder when in that climate, when leaves will begin to fall out.
Yeah.
Well, you can see
Looks
the
like they
grass
were
is
starting.
green, so if the leaves are gonna pop out, they should have popped out. I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm
that,
gonna see if there's anything on the chat. 'Cause that's what it
okay,
is.
we're gonna check the chat here. That's Icelandic for thank you. Takk fyrir. Yes, thank you very much. So now you know how to speak Icelandic. Thank you. Edward's gonna check the chat to see if there are any questions.
Who says that?
Which one is this?
I don't know.
Talk about what?
Probably all technical questions. All right, let's see.
Well, some of it's about,
Lord, it's all.
oh, northern lights are not in the summer. So we saw no northern lights. That was one of the questions on there. And I don't want to go back in the winter. So, yeah. You might not see.
Yeah, we had a lot of trouble. It's very hard to run a hybrid meeting like this. We spent an hour, we came here at 2 o'clock and we were trying to get things going and we almost did.
Well,
Thank you
we
very
spent
much.
an hour, over an hour previously.
Yeah, it takes an hour to set up a hybrid meeting, even if you know what you're doing, which I didn't. So.
Let's see the northern lights.
Northern lights.
No northern lights.
Yeah, so the northern lights can be seen in the winter. Yeah, you'll see, yeah, in fact, you can take special vacations and live in glass igloos, stay in glass igloos in Iceland in the winter, obviously, for the northern lights. Has to be the winter. That would be true of Alaska too. Has to be in the winter.
Well, somebody's talking about incest.
Well,
So I don't know anything about that.
So Marcia, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Regarding incest.
Well, there's a phone app apparently, so you don't end up dating your cousin.
Yeah, don't they don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to date your cousin, that's not my problem. But they have 350,000 people. It should be okay, but I mean, it's a good question as to whether inbreeding could happen. But I don't know.
And then it said, so you were there in what month?
End of May, June.
I think end of May, June, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, around-
somebody, Marcia Walker, our member who lives up in Missouri, says windows are open in the winter sometimes.
Okay, yeah,
Because it's
Reykjavik,
mild, you know.
yeah, Reykjavik's relatively mild. We're talking about the temperatures, wooden houses, and yeah, the electricity is almost free because they have all that hot magma for energy. So they, most of the home heating is based on the energy of the magma. Somehow they engineer it so it works. Right, you don't have to be burning fossil fuels to create heat. You got 2,000 degrees right below you.
And a lot of the roads are heated.
The roads are heated? Okay. Yeah, you would need that in the winter. Okay, I didn't know that. Roads are heated too.
That's because again,
Okay,
of the cheap power.
Yep.